Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, America. My name is Squeak, and we need to talk. This week, the White House comes under the most ridiculous and futile fire for preparing for Christmas. We examine the lunacy of the anti-Christmas movement here in the US and abroad. Overzealous Democrats celebrate their delusion that Mike Flynn pleading guilty means Trump's getting the axe. We examine the epidemic of illegal Mexican aliens getting off the hook for killing white women because everything nowadays has to be a political power struggle. And will the real Theresa May please stand up? All this and more this week on The Squeakly Report. We, the American people, are at war. How many rich, cigar-chomping, megalomaniac health insurance CEOs doubling their profits? How many people have to die before we're willing to admit that we have a problem here? My name is Squeak Attack. Get used to me. I'll try not to flip my lid too much. One of the most pressing issues we face as a society at large is rebellion against traditional values. Granted, not all traditions are created equal, and some probably do need to go the way of the Dido, fading into social obscurity and celebrated only by the select few who actually benefit from their existence. But here's the thing. Tradition isn't morally inferior to progress. When do we reach the point of having progressed too far? When can we say we've gone over the deep end? I would say now, but considering I pay attention to both national and international news, I know from places like Sweden and London that the worst is yet to come. I wanted to talk this week about how beautiful the White House currently looks, with all the Christmas decorations, the videos of First Lady Melania walking around enjoying the sights, and the narrative rightist media is throwing around that Christmas is back in Washington. So I googled White House Christmas, looking for other people's opinions, and one of the first articles to pop up is from the Washington Post. Trump brought Merry Christmas back to the White House? Fact check. Wrong. Why is this wrong? Because the Obama sang Christmas carols 2 years ago? Because Obama signed an executive order giving federal employees Christmas Eve off 5 years ago? And because someone at Fox News commented that. No mention of the fact that we had a Muslim who hated heteronormativity fouling up our societal potpourri for 8 years. And as a result of that, having the Trumps in charge of the White House decor actually feels like a breath of fresh air. Here's a real zinger from that article. The tiresome and ridiculous war on Christmas trope is one of the things that Trump dragged out during his campaign whenever he needed a quick cheer. He promised the nation would be saying Merry Christmas again, completely ignoring the fact that Obama had been saying it for years. In front of the national Christmas tree, in the White House briefing room, 2 reporters, 2 crowds, on camera and perhaps off camera too. Perhaps. MSNBC provided a delightful montage of the Obamas wishing the nation Merry Christmas over the years. You know, you think we're not actually in an intellectual war right now over the concept of Merry Christmas? You're either blind, in denial, or a flat-out moron. According to Pew, 70.6% of Americans are some form of Christian. 6% are Jews, Muslims, Sikhs, Buddhists, Hindus, etc. combined. Almost 23% are either agnostic, atheist, or completely unaffiliated, but most atheists and agnostics I know still celebrate some form of Christmas, if only for commercial or familial purposes. 93.5% of our society celebrates something in the line of Christmas, even if not to celebrate Christ himself, yet schools are being forced right and left to cast off traditional Judeo-Christian values because they want to be inclusive. The idea of putting up a Christmas tree and a menorah isn't enough, though, because Muslims don't have such a holiday, right? Oh, but wait, according to VOA, CNN, and Pew, many, if not most, non-Christians celebrate some form of Christmas, again, just not the religious aspects, including many Muslims, and especially, at least from my observations, a lot of black Muslims. So the whole idea that the holidays, as we celebrate them now, Christmas, Hanukkah, is not inclusive enough is complete and utter BS. Before we continue this examination, we do need to establish what kind of intellectual war this is. See, the war on Christmas is being fought on 2 fronts. On one side, you have the minuscule anti-normativity front, the people who are going after Christmas for no actual reason other than the fact that not everyone, i.e. less than 10% of the actual population, and actually, when you think about it, less than 3% of the actual population has some sort of stick up their urethra about the holiday. These people hate anything they consider the norm. They hate white people, they hate straight people, and they especially hate all things traditional. They're actually spun from the same fiber as the other group, just further on down the spool, the next sequential consequence of anti-Christian sentiment. Now, on the other side of the coin, you have the anti-religious push, and that's what we'll be examining next week. Christmas from a religious perspective, and why we mustn't forget what truly matters around the holidays. As well as just how ironic it is that they're reenacting page for page a Christmas Carol every year with their anti-deist rhetoric and hatred. Yeah, funny, isn't it, how everybody always says that Christians are intolerant, and yet we're the ones getting the most flack. But you know something? It really just comes down to a combination of greed, gluttony, and lust for power for these people. They want to feel like they have control over what other people can and can't do around them. They want their gingerbread, peppermint, pumpkin spice, liquid candy drinks from Starbucks, and thus rely on the holidays they're fighting against to get such sustenance. They want an excuse to spend money, receive gifts, and in many cases, snipe their in-laws. For the rest of this month, we're going to be dissecting the war on Christmas from several different angles. Definitely give us a subscription on iTunes so you'll be notified next week when part 2 of our examination on the War of Christmas drops. Speaking of sniping distant relatives across the dinner table, our president and British Prime Minister Theresa May had an argument last week on social media. And speaking of Washington Post, Trump is guilty because he tweeted at her around 1 a.m. their time, when it was early evening here. What an inconsiderate prick, huh? Because, a tweet isn't waiting for you when you wake up in the morning or anything like that. No, you gotta answer that tweet right away. It interrupts the entire day, you know what I mean? Oh, but wait, it gets better. He tweeted the wrong person. The woman he tweeted at Theresa May is just an ordinary muggle in her 40s, to use the appropriate British vernacular. With 6 Twitter followers at the time, she's now demanding an apology from the White House and that Trump should rein in his tweets. I get it that she's a foreigner, but she really has no clue, does she, as to why Trump won the election and why his supporters so voraciously follow him, his social media presence. What does this random, again, muggle know about the American political system anyway? He made a mistake, get over it. He's human. You, on the other hand, are British, and those are 2 very, very different things. I'm kidding, people. Geez, just a joke. Most of the people in and from the UK, with the exception of J.K. Rowling, Ozzy Osbourne, and Sadiq Khan, are human. Some, however, think they're better than everyone else, and don't make mistakes. That's your call to action this week, everyone. Find someone still complaining about Trump tweeting the wrong Theresa, find a mistake that person has made, and make sure as many people as you can become aware of said mistake. Maybe then they'll learn some basic humanity. So I have to ask, again, will the real Theresa May please stand up? I made that joke already, I know, get over it. Guess what? The PM isn't the real Theresa May either. She's a fraud, a hack, an extreme progressive with a financial god complex. That's what Brexit was all about all along. Money, greedy old hacks looking to make a quick buck, or quit, or whatever they call it over there. May was elected for conservatism, not leftism, and it's clear that she is either in denial of or in support of the reign of terror sweeping through Europe as we speak, thanks to radical Sunni Islam and the idiots who are too ignorant to see that all people of less than fair skin colors are not consummate casualties of the white beast king. Again, Islam is a religion practiced mostly by non-whites, ergo Muslims, Islamists, and jihadists. Yeah, the left views them as victims. May's not too happy with the fact that the president tweeted out an anti-Muslim video, despite the fact that we, his constituents, loved it and elected him partially because of the severity and urgency of his language in regards to Islamism during the election. No, it's all about her. She loves Muslims, just like everyone else in Europe. They love tokenism over there, after all. The video in question came from a publication called Britain First, an allegedly far-right fringe group. Think of Britain First as the Richard Spencer or InfoWars of the UK, if you will. They have significantly worse reputation due to cherry-picked snippets that people largely disagree with, but almost nobody has actually read any of their content. They're a small group, sure, but for crying out loud, their Twitter is nothing but video evidence supporting every single one of their claims. I really don't know how you can refute videos of the kind of violence and depravity they're fighting against while you're watching these things happen right in front of you on your screen. There's a bit of opinionated content, sure, but come on. Everyone has an opinion. Common sense and patriotism are dead in the UK if only 900-some people are willing to follow this sort of content on Twitter. It's horrible. It's sad. So then you have this guy, MP Sam Gyimah, I think it's pronounced. He's another alleged conservative and doesn't want Trump to even visit the country. He thinks Trump is a deliberately divisive influence on our society and our culture. We don't need to belabor the fact that the Obama administration is responsible for the racial division in this country. We don't need to reiterate how Trump's election was a brief moment of solidarity for the scattered remnants of the conservative ideology here in the US. And let's not forget our awesome friends up in Canada who supported another country's presidential candidate in hopes that their perspective may one day return to the Canadian forefront. But what this whole mess really shows is that May is as guilty of giving into internet propaganda as everyone else who got suckered into watching BuzzFeed or reading the failing New York Times. She legitimately believes Britain First is a hate group, and so as a result of her actions has been exposed as the hack she truly is. So what's the takeaway from all this? Don't waste your time trying to please anyone named Theresa May, because no matter what you do, they won't appreciate your efforts. Remember last week when I said we should just turn a blind eye to Sweden and let them deal with their problems on their own? Let's write the UK out of our will too while we're at it. When the hits the fan, this time America won't be there to help. Someone's got to take the fall. Someone's got to be the example. Maybe the rest of the world will learn that diplomacy is a two-way street. If you want the US to trade with you, protect you in times of need, and share culture with you, you have to play nice. Trump's been nothing but cordial to every other world leader he's met with, even those like Duterte and Putin who would have every reason to resent him, and vice versa. It's time everyone else treats him with the same level of respect he's showing them. It really is a shame, though, that our president was cut from the cloth of second chances himself. Because that's what he seems to believe in. He wants to give everyone a second chance. And I'm sorry, Mr. President, but sometimes you just have to push him out of the nest. You got to cut the cord. You got to pull the plug. Otherwise, they'll never learn. Many Americans, however, are of a similar mindset when it comes to racial equity in this country. We arguably invented the mindset ourselves when Democratic lawmakers and politicians began offering small freebies to racial minorities in exchange for votes. Now these people have become dependent on such handouts to the point of not being able to understand living without them. If you ask me, though, that's the real racism at play here, believing a group of people is only statistic you can add to your arsenal and that they are eternal victims in need of help. One group that receives a lot of free passes here in the US is undocumented immigrants from Latin America. Jose Inez Garcia Zarate was recently acquitted of manslaughter after killing Catherine Steinle 2 years ago with a stolen pistol, in the sanctuary city of San Francisco, no less. Garcia had 7 felony convictions and had been deported 5 times prior to the murder. Allegedly, the reason he was let off was because the shooting was an accident and that the type of pistol stolen was incredibly easy to fire. Garcia also claimed for a while that he was shooting at a sea lion, not a person. Because yeah, that's totally fun, right? Shooting a freaking sea lion. What'd that sea lion ever do to you? Why are we letting this kind of crap happen? This woman would still be alive if it weren't for sanctuary city politics and idiots who think open borders are a good idea. Even the mayor of San Francisco went on record and said that you should not have a negative view of his city just because this happened, because sanctuary cities allowed this to happen. There's a reason we have borders, because people are scumbags, and if they think they can get away with something, they will. And in a system where one governing body reigns sovereign over one spot of land and we can't agree as to who has what rights when people visit, or in this case break into other countries, borders need to be enforced. That's why we need a wall to be built. To show the world, yeah, this is America. This is our country. You want to come in, you got to come in through that door, and you got to have your paperwork. But don't ask me what I think. Ask the parents of then 20-year-old Trey Euler, who was shot and killed by an illegal alien, Saul Llamas Rios, suspected of prior murder, who was released on a technicality involving a warrant. What about Ezwin Mejia of Honduras, who ran free after killing Sarah Root while drag racing drunk on a suspended license, no less? Again, a guy comes into our country, refuses to follow our laws, and gets off because of a bunch of ingrates with picket signs in front of the courthouse. I'm sorry, but street racing while drunk without a license? What more evidence do you need to lock this guy up? Root, by the way, was a recent 4.0 GPA graduate of Bellevue University. Probably graduated summa cum laude as a result. So she's gone forever. But this bag of crap gets to walk free. That's disgusting. Cynthia Garcia Cisneros killed 2 children, one just 6 years old, in a hit and run when she drove through a pile of leaves. Why are you driving through a pile of leaves anyway? Somebody work hard to rake up those leaves. You don't know what's in there. There could be someone's dog in there, or in this case, there were 2 children in there. Again, not a citizen, just someone who had been granted residence because her parents smuggled her over here. She's walking free as well. Disgusting, people. Next story. You might be wondering why we dialed back on the sensationalism of the sexual assault epidemic these past few weeks. There are a couple of reasons for this. Number one, I'm just flat out bored with it, quite frankly. I've had enough. Every single man in any position of power in Hollywood or on any TV network, any major network, is going to be accused of sexual assault within the next year. Guarantee it. Number two, I think it's obvious that the mass media is going to try to cover up cases like Al Franken, John Conyers, and Matt Lauer to divert our attention back to people like Roy Moore, who they just don't like. Number three, I think it's just time to move on from this crap. Put it behind us. There's other news out there. So I'll be reporting from here on out only if there's something major that happens in one of these cases. Because otherwise, it's just irrelevant. This isn't a gossip show, after all. Sensationalism, at least in this form, isn't a conservative principle. The only thing I will say about this is that Corey Feldman, who has once again gone silent, just completely shut his mouth, shut himself away, lowered the target goal of his Indiegogo campaign to just $1 million, 10% of what it was originally. He's now, therefore, a quarter of the way to his goal. What's sad, though, is how mainstream media won't give us all the facts in regards to certain cases. Now, this is just speculation on my part, but I think it's safe to say that the media handpicks the stories and cases it wants to cover based on whether or not it suits their political agenda. This we can all agree, right? There's a reason why they say politics is one thing you should not talk about at work, because everyone has a very strong opinion, and everyone's going to express that opinion. But what if your job involves news and politics? Well, if you're CNN, you flat out lie to people to push a narrative. Same with MSNBC, same with Fox News, same with the failing New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Look at Roy Moore again. He's accused of assaulting fewer than 10 girls at some point in his life, and it's apparently not hurting his chances of winning the Alabama Senate election. He's only down by, 3 points right now, according to one poll, neck and neck with the other guy in another? Meanwhile, the mainstream media remains silent on the Carlos Bell case, in which an HIV-positive school coach and teaching assistant sexually assaulted 42 young boys. CNN, Fox News, and the like initially covered the story back in October, but ABC, CBS, and NBC, the national networks, just declined, wouldn't talk about it. Bell also apparently used 10 of those boys to create child pornography and was in possession of a butt-ton more when he was arrested. This is apparently less sensational than a senator who allegedly signed a yearbook which experts now believe to have been forged, and recently at that. Is it because Bell is, well, from the looks of the photo and his name, he's probably black and Hispanic? Is it because of that? Is it because he's gay? Or is it because they just don't want you to know what really happened because it doesn't suit their narrative or their agenda? My thoughts exactly. These kids' whole lives might be ruined. You know, according to the Mayo Clinic, HIV and AIDS symptoms can take up to a decade to manifest. Let that sink in. Imagine living 10 years, not knowing at any point along the way if you have a disease that could potentially be to blame for your untimely death years from now. And as a kid at that. That's horrifying for an adult. I can only imagine how these kids feel, if they can even grasp the severity of the situation they're in. Let's talk about HIV and AIDS. It's a controversial subject, mainly due to the alleged misconception that AIDS is a gay disease, allegedly government propaganda from the 80s. This is another example of people being quicker to believe social justice-oriented op-eds over actual medical journals. According to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, experts on the subject, actual people who know what they're talking about, not BuzzFeed, not MSNBC, an actual company that exists to promote medical awareness. Gay men make up about 2% of the US population but comprise 70% of new HIV infections. In 2014, 17% of them were unaware of the fact that they had the disease. Again, it can take up to a decade before you know 100% that you do or don't have it. You may not even know if you don't get yourself tested. It doesn't take a rocket surgeon to figure out why gay men are at higher risk of AIDS and other STDs. It's a disease that can be transmitted by either partner, though lesbians are understandably significantly less likely to be in a position to receive the virus. AIDS is also easier to transmit orally and anally than vaginally, and since most heterosexual sex is, in fact, vaginal, the chances of contracting the disease are significantly higher in gay couples than in straight. Now, I should point out, of course, that new cases are on the decline, having dropped by almost 50% here in the US between 2014 and 2015 alone. Also worth noting is something else that needs to be said. Gay men are most likely to contract HIV and AIDS. However, considering roughly 1,100,000 people have AIDS and roughly 70% of gay men, that means the following. 770,000 gay men in the US have HIV. If 2% of the US population are gay men, that's roughly 6,462,000 people. Approximately 12% of gay men, 1 in 8.5, may have HIV. Why am I pointing this out? Because in all fairness, it just needs to be said. We here at Squeak Attack are focused on the truth, not our own agendas. I'm sure I'm going to catch a lot of flack from both sides for saying this. HIV is a disease that affects significantly more gay men than any other group. It's statistically a gay disease, but most gay men obviously do not have it. These are facts, not homophobia. How about some good news? We don't get to talk about a lot of good stuff on the show now, do we? The Senate agreed to pass the proposed tax reform bill. Let's recap again what this means for you. If you own a small business, your tax rate will drop allowing you to retain more profit and hopefully employ more people and continue to grow. If you are a middle-class person or family, you will experience a small drop in your tax rate or will break even. Okay, that's good. If you're earning less than $9 an hour working full-time, you're in the wrong industry and need to reconsider your life choices. If you are only employed part-time and are thus earning less than $19,000 a year, you need to find a better job and move out of your mother's house. Either way, you're going to experience a minuscule increase in your tax rate, about 2 to 3%. If you're in the Fight for 15 movement, you can rest easily knowing the job you just got that pays you $14 an hour is now providing you with a living wage. Let's return to an analogy we made previously, the one with the pies from last week. If Johnny has a pie and Sammy wants some, Sammy has two choices. The Nancy Pelosi approach of finding some justification for taking or otherwise acquiring some of Johnny's pie, or the adult choice of baking his own. See, Pelosi's so caught up on this idea that the rich will in some way still benefit from this tax plan, which in turn means the poor have less pie than the rich. Well, no, actually, the rich are being taxed more now than ever before, and even if they were to benefit, that would have a trickle-down effect on everyone below them. The poor, meanwhile, if you look at actual numbers, which she is not even considering at all in neither her Twitter conniption or the Pelosi statement on the Senate passage of GOP tax scam. No numbers, just politics. For crying out loud, no matter what in the world the GOP or President Trump will do or say, hell, Trump could personally discover a chemical compound that prevents cancer cells from developing, and the left would still have a problem with it. They're horrible people, and Pelosi is a total lunatic at heart. Math, Pelosi, do the math. But no, she's not going to do the math. You know why? Because all she has to do is get up there, foam at the mouth a little, and scream about, oh, this tax plan is racist. And everyone cheers. All of her constituents, they just go crazy. They love this stuff. It's sick. Granted, it wasn't a big victory. It was a 51-49, the bare minimum needed for it to pass. Trump got every Republican except Bob Corker on board, and of course every Democrat voted no. However, it does put another nail in the coffin when you consider only 9 Democrats voted yes to an increase of the child tax credit for low-income families. Feinstein, Franken, Schumer, Warren, Sanders, and McCain, who might as well be a liberal at this point, none of these people care about low-income families. For reference, here's some of the high-profile Republicans who supported the tax credit. Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, Bill Cassidy, Mike Lee, no surprises. Kind of surprised that Lindsey Graham and Rand Paul said no, though. Oh well, baby steps. That's what this is. It's a baby step. It's progress. We've made progress. Trump has made progress. The Senate has made progress. America has made progress. I'm not talking about the kind of progress that would elect an intergender, gay, black, Asian, Muslim, lawn flamingo with a broken beak as president, but rather the kind that will allow our president to make America great again. Now, you know what? That's a stupid thing to say. I'm sorry. We don't need to make America great again. You know why? Because America is great. America always was great. What we need to do is make the American people great again. We need to find what's great in ourselves and bring it back out. And if there's someone else there who refuses to get on board with that, you smack the great back into them like it's Jesus. Trump was able to unite the GOP. And if this trend continues, there's a very good chance that next year we'll be able to see 2 massive controversial promises our president has made come to fruition. By 2020, we'll have a wall, healthcare reform, and if we're lucky, we'll see an end to ISIS, Al-Qaeda, North Korea, and the crap that's going down in the Philippines by 2024. A bit idealistic, yes, but certainly not unrealistic. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, I'm sure. Mike Flynn pleads guilty. Flynn, as you probably remember, was the first high-profile dismissal from the Trump administration. According to Trump, the reason for his dismissal was because he flat-out lied to the FBI and vice president, and thus the president himself and the American people, as you may have extrapolated for yourself. And the worst part is, the thing that Flynn did that he lied about was completely lawful, a little shady, but perfectly within his legal bounds. There is no law stating that a member of the president's cabinet cannot have had previous ties to any foreign government. And something tells me if Flynn were in tight with the Belgian or Canadian administrations, he would instead be praised for his actions on both sides of the political aisle. Make no mistake, the only reason the left likes him is because they think he's a means to an end for the president's time in office. Except that's not going to happen. This is the part the left doesn't get. They think the noose is tightening around the president's neck. What they aren't seeing is that that's not the president. That's a cactus with a fox pelt stuck to it. Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI and the vice president, not to collusion. First off, that's not what the trial was about. It was, did he lie? Did he commit what we call perjury in the legal field? He was never on trial for collusion, and now he's being penalized for perjury. He could have lied about anything and he'd be in this position. So the whole Trump's getting impeached because Flynn proves collusion hurdy-dur, that argument's nonsense. In hindsight, though, I'm sure the president regrets allowing an investigation to open up over said perjury claims, maybe even dismissing Flynn at the exact moment that this happened, and then subsequently going after Comey because, to the uninitiated, it looks really bad. It makes the president look guilty. I remember when I first heard about the Flynn dismissal, and the first thing in my mind was, wait, he had to have a reason, right? Please tell me he had a reason. Right? And I know politics inside and out, people. If I, of all people, found myself victim to rhetorical nonsense in regards to the Flynn investigation, what hope is there for the public, the masses? What are your thoughts, everyone? Do you think liberals are going to let up yet on their impeachment fantasies? Do you still believe they're drivel about the Russian collusion scheme? Do you think the Senate has finally made progress towards making America great again, or rather, in this case, keeping America great? Tweet me your thoughts at Squeak_Attack. Like our Squeakly Report Facebook page and join our discussion group. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and leave a review, please. It's been a great week for the truth, everyone. I'll be seeing you. Like what you heard? Hate what you heard? Want to see me dead? Follow me on Twitter at Squeak_Attack and join our Squeak Attack feed Facebook group and fan page. Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Leave a comment on the blog. And as always, have a good day.